Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for listening. Thank you for downloading. And thank you for subscribing to the latest edition of the 12 Kyle podcast. I am 12 Kyle. Check this out. On this episode, what I want to talk about is eras. More specifically, I want to talk to you about my era, the era where I'm from. I think as we get older, we have a tendency to probably more so than ever look back on some of the things that we did, some of the things that we accomplished, and in my case, when you see drastic changes in how the world was when you were younger as opposed to how the world is now, it makes you reflect on how much things change. I like it personally when the younger cats, the young Thundercats on social media refer to me as OG, or sometimes they'll call me Unc, but most of the time it's OG. Excuse me. And that to me, OG is a term of endearment. I've never been in the gang, so it's not anything affiliated with a gang. But I like that term because that means whomever speaking to me understands and recognizes that I'm older and that I've seen a little bit more and I've experienced a little bit more, right? But my era, I put my era against anybody else's era, but my era, and probably a lot of people who are going to listen to this episode will be sitting there in their cars at the cubicle on their walks, nodding their head because they understand and they agree. And again, I'm not comparing my era to anybody else's, but I want to tell you about a little bit about the era where I'm from. My era mostly consisted of being in that era before the advent of the internet. So unlike my kids and the kids that will come behind my kids, our generation was one of the last generations to have a childhood and adolescence without the advent of technology like that. And for me, it was perfect because our era was just different. Not saying it's better, not saying it's worse, just a little bit different. Case in point, I'm from the era where you literally could just show up to your friend's house unannounced. You'd hop on your bike and you just go surprise your friend. And once your friend was home, you'd hang out with your friend. I mean, like, there was no, let me call Timmy to see if I can come over. No, you just came over. And if by chance, you came to see Timmy and he wasn't home, well, he just wasn't home. And, you probably couldn't say anything, or, you tell him the next time you saw him, hey man, I came to your house yesterday. But I'm from that era. But the idea of, announcing yourself or something like that, no, we didn't do that. You just showed up at somebody's house. I mean, and it didn't matter if it was somebody that lived on your street, or if someone that lived in your neighborhood, or someone who lived 10 minutes away. You just showed up. That's how it was. I mean, like, there was no call and check in. I'm from that era. I'm from the era of drinking from a water hose when you're outside. Now, I know that may be more specific to those of us who grew up in the South. I grew up in a place called Florence in the state of South Carolina. And so in Florence, it's South Carolina. It's not, it's not New York City. It's not LA. It's not a big metropolis. So it's rural. So, these are smaller towns. So yeah, when we were outside, there was no such thing as coming in the house and getting some water. No, man, you outside, go grab that water hose. Drink water from the water hose. Because here's the thing. If you went inside, specifically during the summer months, if you went inside, there was a chance that you would have to stay inside. You didn't want that. I'm from that era. I'm from the era of in the summertime, you would literally leave your house probably about 8, maybe 9 o'clock, no later than 10. And you literally would be gone the entire day. You might, I didn't like coming home for lunch, because if you came home for lunch, you know what would happen? Hey, well, you need to stay in the house. No, because staying in the house really in the summertime was punishment. You know why? Because you know what was happening outside? Everything happened outside. So you didn't want to miss anything. You didn't want to miss nothing. So yeah, I'm from that era. I'm from the era of drink from the water hose during the summertime. I'm also from the era of recording tapes, making tapes from recordings off the radio. I was telling somebody the other day, like, we were really sound engineers and we didn't even know it. I mean, the precision that it would take to record a song off the radio, stop the tape, pause the tape, get it in the right space to where the DJ's not talking over you, because you don't want the DJ talking over your song. If you're going to play Atlantic Star, I just want to hear Atlantic Star. I want to hear Always. I don't want to hear the DJ talking about, traffic or who the song was dedicated to or anything like that. I just want to hear the song. And we would make tapes. And those were our first tapes that we made. Those were the first, and really for my generation's first mixtapes. Yeah. And we did it. I'm from that era, the first mixtapes. I'm from the era of playing in the playground no matter what was in the playground. I mean, like, where I grew up at, if you lived in like a housing project, and I let me paint this picture for you. When I say housing project, I'm not talking about Cabrini Green. I'm not talking about Jordan Downs. I'm not talking about any other notorious. I'm not talking about Marcy projects. I'm not talking about any notorious crime-fested, projects. Because in the South, apartment complexes can be referred to as projects, but they really ain't projects by your definition, and probably my definition as well. But here's the thing. We lived in, at least for part of my childhood, we lived in an apartment complex, the projects. And yeah, there was always a playground in the projects. There was always a playground. And then if you didn't have a playground in the projects, there was a playground at a park. Well, more often than not, those playgrounds really weren't safe. I don't know if they ever passed inspections. You would always see broken glass, beer cans. Now I will say this much, even though I grew up in the crack era, I never saw like crack valves in the playgrounds, but I do know people who have. So, but no, those by society standards, I'm pretty sure those playgrounds probably couldn't pass any kind of inspections, but we didn't care about that. I'm from the era where we just, if we saw a sliding board, if we saw some monkey bars, if we saw a, what's the little wheel thing that goes around and makes you dizzy or whatever, merry-go-round. I mean, we got on it. We didn't care about it. You could probably, cut yourself and get gangrene on your leg. I mean, we didn't care about that stuff. I'm from that era. I'm from the era where once upon a time, you would take a cardboard box, cut it up, make big pieces of cardboard, lay them on the ground flat so you could break dance. I'm from that era. breakdancing was dope. I mean, you talking early to mid 80s? Everybody was at least trying to break. And, the old people will tell you, oh, don't spin on your head, you'll break your neck. No, you weren't. Nobody ever got a concussion. Nobody ever tore a ligament in their neck from spinning on their head. It's just people just talking. But I'm from that era. I'm from the cardboard era. I'm from the era where you, especially in the summertime, you had to watch the soap operas with your grandmother. You know why? Because she wasn't going to let you watch cartoons. And really, to be honest, in the era of time that I grew up in, you didn't get a lot of cartoons during the week. You got cartoons, you getting like Flintstones, Jetsons, maybe Bugs Bunny here and there in the afternoon after school. But excuse me, for the most part, no, during the day. And you weren't going to watch what you wanted to watch. If your grandmother was watching you during the summertime, or even your aunts or uncles, more often than not, they're watching soap operas. So guess what you were watching if you were in the house? Soap operas. You couldn't say, hey, can I turn on BET? No, you ain't watching on MTV. You're going to sit right down here and watch this Young Adolescents and see what Victor and Victor Newman and Nikki are about to do. That's what you're going to do. You're going to watch General Hospital or Days of Our Lives or any of those other soap operas that I never watched. But I did watch Young and the Restless and The Bold and the Beautiful. Do they still come on? I think they still come on. I haven't seen soap operas in years. But yeah, that's what you were going to do. I'm from the era where you took magazines and you cut out pictures and you put them on the wall. Shout out to Right On Magazine, Word Up Magazine. I know some people who cut up the Jet magazine. Shout out to the Jet centerfolds. Jet's Beauty of the Week, I should say. Yeah, I'm from that era. I had mad pictures of sports figures. Some of my favorite, of course, Michael Jordan was all on my wall. I remember I saw this girl, and I want to say she was maybe 2 years older than me. No, she might be a year older than me. Anyway, I thought she was I saw her name in a basketball magazine called Street and Smith, and I kept seeing her name, and I found out she was from Philly. And then I saw a picture of it when she went to the University of Virginia, and she was hooping and she was bad and she was I thought she was so cute. As soon as I saw the picture, I cut the picture, I put it up on my wall. That was Dawn Staley, multi-Olympian, current at the time of this recording, head basketball coach for the University of South Carolina women's basketball team. Yeah, had a huge crush on Dawn Staley. But yeah, you cut out pictures and put them on the wall. Some of my favorite rap groups, Public Enemy, was on my wall. New Edition was on my wall. I mean, like I had so many. I had pictures on my walls. I had pictures on my door. I had pictures on my ceiling. Yeah, I'm from that era. I'm from the era of decorating your room with pictures from magazines. I'm from the era of road trips, and I got a podcast coming about road trips, but I'm from that era where you went on a road trip and your mom or dad or uncles or whoever you were riding with, they made before they left, they made sandwiches or they fried some chicken because you had to eat that on the trip because they weren't stopping for you to go to McDonald's. Like going to McDonald's, like I'm from the era where going to McDonald's was like a luxury. Like now, my kids, they'll be like, oh, can we have Wingstop? Can we have McDonald's? Can we have, like going out to eat is something totally different for them. Like there's no, that it's an often occurrence for them. So they don't really relish it like that. Like for us in my era, man, you'd be happy. I mean, if you went to McDonald's, that was like, that was the shit for real. Because it didn't happen that often. But no, I remember I'm from that era where, yeah, you had to have someone would have prepared some food for the road trip. And in my case, my family, I lived in South Carolina, but I had family in New Jersey, and we would always go to New Jersey. We go for the summertime. Sometimes we go for holidays. And so instead of us having to stop, you got to stop at the gas station, go to the bathroom, get gas or whatever like that. But we weren't stopping at, the gas station and going to McDonald's or going to Burger King or whatever like that. No, so that wasn't happening. So you had to eat that cold chicken that was fried the night before. I'm from that era. I'm from the era of recording videos on a VCR, much like the cassette tapes, which if you follow the podcast, I did a podcast episode about that. I'm from that era. I'm from the era of taking a VHS tape, putting it in the deck, and recording my favorite rap videos or R&B videos. I spent a lot of time, and people from my era did this too, spent a lot of time recording Video Soul. For those who had video jukebox, I didn't have that down south. MTV, Yo MTV Raps, Rap City, The Basement, all of that, and then subsequently 106 and Park. Man, listen, there are so many VHS tapes. I have some in my house here, and then I've got more in my mom's house in Florence, but the reality is I don't have a VCR to play them on. So I'll give you an example. Like when Jordan's last year in Chicago, for what he made the Last Dance for, that year I specifically said, I'm going to tape as many of these games as I can, because one day I will have a son, and I want my son to know that this guy is the greatest basketball player to ever play the game. And I did it for that specific reason. So I have mad VHS tapes. I got tapes of Jordan. I got tapes of Allen Iverson. I got tapes of Shaq and Kobe. And I don't have a VCR to play it on. Go figure. But yeah, I'm from the era. I'm from the era of, and I spoke about it a little earlier. In the summertime, you had to be home before the lights were on. No questions asked. If you left that morning and you were gone all day, the only requirement that your parents had, or your grandmother, grandfather, whomever, was that you were home before the street lights came on. And it's interesting because, summertime, the days are longer, so you got more time outside. So if the street lights come on at 8:30, you've literally been gone all day. And what's even more amazing is that we would be gone all day and nobody came looking for us. Nobody. I mean, you could just say, "Hey, Mom, I'm going to Reggie's house." And as far as as far as your mom knows, you were just at Reggie's house. And maybe you were at Reggie's house all day. You probably weren't. Because the reality is, you went to Reggie's house, you went to the park, you went to the store, you went to Ron's house, you went and saw Chris over at in the other neighborhood, and you did all of that, and then came back to Reggie's house. And then you found your way home before the lights came on, before the street lights came on. Yeah, so I mean, I'm from that era. I'm from the be home before the street lights come on era. I'm definitely from the era of the go together era. What I mean by that is, we came through an era where you had to ask a young lady, "Do you want to go with me?" And sometimes we put it in a letter. "Do you want to go with me?" Check yes, check no, check maybe so. And I'm sure a lot of you listening and watching this have gotten those letters. Yeah, I'm from the go together era. Now I can't tell you where we were going, but that's what we would say. Well, we go together. We're boyfriend and girlfriend. It's like going steady. But I'm from that era where you had to talk. There were no phones, so couldn't. Let me rephrase that. There were no cell phones, so you could not text. So you had to learn how to talk. I'm from the era of phones. Like literally, you would get on the phone. Like that's what's like even mind-boggling to me these days when I hear, sometimes I hear women say, "Well, yeah, I was talking to this guy, but he don't like to talk on the phone." Huh? What? Come on, man. I'm from the era where we love to talk on the phone. You know why? Because we didn't have a choice. There's no such thing as, oh well, I'll see you at school and talk to you at school. No, I don't have time to rap at school, but I got time to rap on this phone. I got a couple of hours before bedtime. I got my homework done. We're gonna talk. So yeah, I mean, I'm from that era. I'm from the era of talking on the phone. So, and I find it interesting that a lot of people like myself who spent their formative years talking on the phone, we have podcasts. And you know what? The podcasts for us come very easy because you know why? We grew up talking. That's why. So that's why if you ever listen to this podcast or listen to me talk about something, you say, you know what? His conversation sounds very very fluid, very, very smooth. It's because I've been talking all my life. And it started when I was getting interested in girls. And I was like, I got to talk to her. Can I get your phone number? What time can I call you? So I'm getting these confirmations. She's saying yes. And then I'm on the phone and then I'm not going to sit here and tell you I was spitting all the game because I didn't have all the game. But I knew how to talk. And there's a difference. And so now talking is second nature. That's why we do these podcasts. We like to talk. And it starts from coming from that era where we learn how to talk. I mentioned a little earlier, like I'm from the bike riding era. Like I don't see any kids riding bikes these days. And again, there's no knock on this era, but it's just on my era. Yeah, we rode bikes. You rode your bike everywhere. Every now and then you'd have a kid who, was on skateboards, but for the most part, you rode a bike. You rode a bike and you rode wherever that bike would take you. And sometimes it's like when I'm in my hometown of Florence, I see places that I've gone or I remember being at on my bike. And I'm like, yo, I really rode over here on my bike. And I look up, it's like 3-4 miles away from where I live. And that don't sound like a lot, but when you're a kid and your mama don't know where you at, you think about as a parent, you think about all the crazy stuff, somebody could have snatched, but it's rare that you would never be by yourself. I'm from that's another part of our era too. We were always together. Yeah. You'd never see a kid walking down the street by him or herself. No, hell no. Always at least 2 or 3 deep. Always. If I was on my bike, my boy, he was on his bike with him. And then my brother might be on his bike. No, you were never traveling alone. And it's funny because like you look around now and you drive around and you see people walking, young kids walking down the street by themselves all day. And I'm like, I mean, yeah, you got a cell phone, but you're looking at the cell phone. So somebody could just run up behind you, knock you upside your head. You'd never know because you're not aware of your surroundings. But I'm from that era where, no, we rode bikes and we stuck together. Like that was it. Like you did not. That was the quickest way to get around, to be honest, on a bike. Because here's the thing. If I wanted to go see Johnny and Johnny lived 2 miles away, well, guess what? My mom's not burning up her gas to take me to Johnny's house. You better walk or you better get on that bike. Yeah, but that's the era, man. What else is in our era? Oh, I'm from the era where television went off at 2 a.m. And I think I mentioned this before on this podcast, but like seeing a TV station literally go off and go blank at 2 a.m. It was kind of scary for me. I hated seeing that. And it wasn't, and I'll be honest, it wasn't a whole bunch of times that I was up at 2 a.m. as a child. But still scary nonetheless. I mean, network TVs, your ABCs, CBS, NBCs, they would literally stop airing everything at 2 a.m. There would the news would go off. You'd have your late night shows with like Johnny Carson and people like that, and then after that, they would play. I think it was either the Star Spangled Banner or America the Beautiful, one of the two. And then after that, the screens would go blank, and this was on each of the stations, the major stations. And then ultimately, cable TV came into play. And once cable TV came into play, we had networks like CNN that stayed on and ran news all night. But for the most part, up until that point, up until cable really became a thing in our era, the TV really, literally was off at 2 a.m. But yeah, that was that was our era. I'm from the era also where you literally and figuratively could get into a fight with your best friend at noon and be mad as hell at your friend, right? And if you saw him at 2 o'clock, you'd be cool again. I mean, it'd be just like we didn't fight like 2 hours ago, because your friend would come over and to be honest, the times that you got into fights with your friends and stuff, I don't really know that there was a whole bunch of apologizing. It's just like, all right, man, we fought. You want to go to the store? Yeah, let's go to the store. Voila. It was just like that. Speaking of the community, I'm from the era of community spankings. What I mean by that is, if you did something and someone in your community saw you doing something that you weren't supposed to be doing, right? They had the right to spank you. And then subsequently, they would tell your parents or your guardian, and you'd probably get spanked again once, mom or dad or grandma or grandpa got home. That's how it worked. Because literally, you could get into so much trouble that you could get yourself hurt or possibly killed. That's how it was in that era. So everybody looked out for everybody. So if you were in trouble or you were doing something you weren't supposed to be doing, the community had the right to police you. And your mama wasn't going to say, well, no, don't say nothing to my child or anything like that, because, they knew the deal. And so, yeah, it was, no, you couldn't be out here wilding. You couldn't be out here, and you definitely couldn't be out here being disrespectful to no grown-ups, talking back. And God forbid, don't you dare fix your mouth to cuss at a grown person. Oh, hell no. You will get destroyed by your mama. And that's how it was, man. Community spanking. Yeah, everybody, looked out for you. Good, bad, or indifferent. And the last thing about my era I love, and I mean, it's obvious because of technology, but in my era, I'm from the era where there was no technology, so you had no means of keeping up with me. Like this right here, cell phone, right? If I walk out of this house, everybody should be able to everybody can still get in contact with me. Once I walk out of this house, if I go to the store, if I go over here to the mall, if I go to get something to eat, everybody in the world who has access to the number attached to this phone, or if they have access to my social media accounts, at the very least, they can send a message and reach out to me. But I'm from the era where you could literally walk out of your house and nobody could get in contact with you but the people who you were with. And that was freedom. It was beautiful. I'll be honest, it was beautiful. because I mean we didn't know how dope it was, but it was so dope because like you didn't have to be bothered. Now, on a safety tip, it's probably, we probably avoided a whole bunch of stuff, in trouble that we could have gotten into. And then you didn't have the means of contacting people in the event something did happen. So, yeah, if your car broke down on the side of the road, you were just assed out. Yeah, you were just in trouble. But I like that era. I love that. I love that part about the era is that you literally, could be gone and like nobody knew nothing. And it's funny because it's like, I even think, especially like when my oldest son, Dion, went to college, and I remember like his first semester in college, and I was telling my wife, I was like, I said, we talked to him. We talked to him probably in a 2-week span. We probably talked to him on the phone more than I talked to my mom the whole first semester that I was in school. Because it's like, she dropped me off. Hey, you need to do this, and that. And then we might not talk again for like a month. And I probably should ask my mom, how did she handle that? Because I never asked her how she handled that. Because, thinking about it now, you're not going to go a month without talking to your child, because we have the means to do so. But I mean, like, it was a long distance phone call. If I called her, we wrote letters and stuff. But, when she dropped me off at the campus of South Carolina State University, she could only assume that I was still there. I mean, for all that I know, for all that she knows, I could have walked off the campus, got in a car and drove to Miami and been living on South Beach for a month. But, yeah, a great era. I love our era. I wouldn't trade it for the world. I'm glad that I was born the time in which I was born. No knock on anybody that came after our era, but my era is pretty dope. And so am I. Ladies and gentlemen, that's going to do it for me. Thank you for checking out this edition of the 12 Kyle podcast. Be sure to subscribe to the podcast. The podcast drops every Thursday at midnight. You can find the podcast on all platforms, all streaming platforms. You can find it on YouTube as well. And from time to time, we will drop bonus episodes on Sundays at midnight. If you feel so inclined, donate. Hit us up on Cash App at $. Spell it out. TWELVEKYLE. Again, that's going to do it for me. I am your boy 12 Kyle. I'll catch you guys next time. 5G.